Some of you are new enough to using Canvas and WebCourses that I thought I would just take a minute to show you a very, very important feature of Canvas that you might not know about or you know about but aren't using enough. As an online class, you have to be aware of when new content shows up, particularly postings that I make in the various discussions and assignments and web pages. So if you're already using Web Canvas notifications, you don't need this. But if you're not, let me show you just very briefly how to find them. Up here on your corner of your screen, you've got an account page. If you click on that option, you can click on notifications and go to where Canvas allows you to set notifications for what you have going on in the environment. So I'm going to go ahead and set those as I go through. Now, the notifications you can set will be a little different. My list is based on the things that an instructor can specify notifications for. So your list might be shorter, or it might provide some additional things that I don't see. But basically, for a list of activities, you're going to decide when would you like to be informed that those things are happening. On the right, you should see your email address or email addresses, whatever you've chosen to set up within WebCourses for contacting you. I tend to use my work email the most because that's the one I have direct access to through my Outlook. I could also use my UCF email if I were using that. I'm not, or my Twitter feed, whatever communication mechanism you've set up to let you know that things are happening. But I tend to use my email account. I presume you'll use the same, either your UCF email account or one you have outside. The various options basically are the check mark, which says notify me right away if one of these things happens. That's the one I tend to use for the important stuff. You could also use the clock, which is to send a daily summary. Every day, tell me what's happened here. That one doesn't tend to be as useful if you're trying to keep track of what's really happening. You also have the option to get nothing, which is the default, or a weekly summary. So I would assume if you want to know what's going on in the classroom, you're going to use this check mark to turn on notifications. So the challenge is just look down the list of activities to see which things you would like to know about in your email, so that even prior to going into WebCourses, you already know some of those things are happening. Due dates are a good one to pick. If you pick due dates, then if I change a due date on an assignment in Canvas, not WebAssign, but in Canvas, you'll be told about that immediately. The course content page is a good one because if I add a wiki page for you to read, or I add a video of content, or I somehow update a description or things of that nature, you would be told about that immediately. So I recommend turning on the course content. Announcement, you can turn that on. That means anytime I post an announcement, you'll get that through your email as you go through to see what's going on. You can turn it on for grading, so you'll be notified if I issue a grade for you. So those are the kinds of things you want to be seeing as they come through. I also recommend you turn it on down here for discussions and discussion posts. That if I add a discussion or update a discussion topic that you need to be responding to, you want to know that right away. You can also say discussion posts, that if people post to a discussion, you'll know about it. Now that one's not universal. I have to show you one more thing in a minute. If you pick to be notified for discussions, you don't necessarily get notified for every discussion. You have to subscribe to the discussions that you want, and I'll show you that in just a minute. You could subscribe to say, if I receive a message in my Canvas inbox, I would like to know about that. So if I email you or a classmate emails you and you're not in Canvas, it would get copied directly over to your email as you go through. Conferences, if we start doing online conferences for any of the project work and you want to be notified when the appointments are ready, you can pick that. So in general, go through this list and check to be notified anytime something happens that you'd like to see. But when I make entries into Canvas, I'm assuming that if I change a due date, or I add a video to one of my wiki pages, or I add a discussion topic, or I post an important discussion topic that you should see, I'm assuming that you see those. I don't typically send you announcements or emails telling you that those things are happening. I have sent you a couple of them this week as we all get used to each other, but I'm not going to continue doing that in the future. I'm expecting you to turn on notifications so that you definitely know what's going on. If you don't use notifications, I'm assuming you're coming into WebCourses often enough that you're checking to see what has changed and what has been updated as we go through. So one more thing, let's deal with these discussion posts. What discussion posts do you want to be notified about as you go through? So to see that, I have to go back into the course. So I'm going to do that now. Oops, wrong one. It's not archive. Okay, our class is that one. Okay, so once I'm into the class, if I go to the discussions page, now assuming I've turned on notifications for a discussion, because subscribing doesn't do anything unless you've turned on the notifications. But when you come to the discussions page, you won't see this in the modules page. You have to come to the discussions page. For every discussion in the list, you have the option to subscribe. What subscribing does is it sends you the notice if you're being notified. Like I said, if you don't have notifications turned on, this doesn't have any effect. So this check mark over here in this column, I'm not sure exactly what yours will look like as a student, but for me it shows up over here. The check marks indicate that I have subscribed to that topic. And this little icon that shows here shows that I have not. So if a posting appears in a thread that I've subscribed to, I immediately get told about that. So if you ask me a question in the Ask Dr. Beal and Jorge thread, I don't have to wait until next time I log on to WebCourses to find out that it's there. Canvas sends it to me automatically. I immediately know that if someone has asked me a question that I need to answer. Same with the Unit 1 questions and tips. If you ask me a question there, I will immediately know that, and I'll come back into WebCourses and do that. It's a very important feature for me as an instructor because even if I'm in WebCourses, I'm not necessarily in this class. I'm teaching a lot of classes. So rather than having to bounce around all the different classes, if I want to know if something's happening or if someone has asked me a question that I need to see, I can check my Outlook to see what emails have arrived. So here on this side, if I want to uncheck that, I just have to uncheck it and I'm no longer subscribed, or I can resubscribe. Like I said, subscribing doesn't do anything unless you're being notified. As you can see a long list here of things that I've chosen. If you type something in the Cyber Cafe or you type something in the WebAssign forum, I'm going to find out about that right away. And I'm assuming you're using the same feature, that if I add a video to a wiki page, if I change a due date, if I update an assignment text, you will know about that because you've turned on the notifications that you know what's happening in the class.